Welcome to the Real Estate Syndication Show. Whether you are a seasoned investor or building a new real estate business, this is the show for you. Whitney Sewell talks to top experts in the business. Our goal is to help you master real estate syndication. And now your host, Whitney Sewell.
This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today our guest is Dan Haberkost. Dan is a Colorado-based investor with a land and development business and a portfolio of rentals who is quickly expanding in the commercial real estate world. So guess what? He is age 25. And at this time, he's been able to build a real estate business that allows him a complete freedom over his time. You are going to be encouraged, I think, by this show. He has accomplished a lot. I mean, at a very young age, there's so many limiting beliefs we've talked about on the show from people being young. But I think no matter what age you are today, you are going to be encouraged. But at 16, he was managing some rentals for a boss, and he goes into why really it was a pretty bad situation. But he learned a lot. He kept educating himself. He done many things to make a lot happen at a very young age, which I think any of us could implement right away. But he has a great business right now around land and development. And he goes in also to some mindset stuff and even how the land cash flows and different things that are so important no matter what business or real estate business you are a part of. Dan, welcome to the show. Honored to meet you. I mean, just reading your bio, man, you're somebody that's out there making it happen, no doubt about it. You've kicked those limiting beliefs to the side, of people that say, you're not old enough yet, or, you haven't lived long enough yet. You haven't learned enough, whatever, right? I heard many of those myself, and it was even older than you when I was getting started in commercial real estate. And so, many people, even out of love for you, right? They want to hold you back. But you have definitely not allowed that to happen. At the age of 25, you have accomplished a lot. I'm looking forward to getting into that today, and just even some of the specific, practices or a business model that you have. Give the listeners a little more about, who you are, and let's jump into some of that.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me on the show, Whitney. I was excited to record, like I mentioned. I've been listening to a few of your episodes. There's definitely a lot of good content here. Taking it back. Or let's start where I am now. Today, on the active side, I have a land and development business, which involves the buying and selling of land, some for cash, some for notes, and then developing houses on the prime lots, the easiest lots where it makes the most sense. And then on the passive side, I have a small portfolio. I've got 10 tenants between 4 properties, and I actually just locked up a seller financed house today. I wasn't planning to buy any more houses, but this guy wants to sell off his old portfolio. And he's offering 3% long-term 15-year mortgages. So that's hard to say no to. But I got started, really my first experience in real estate was when I was 16. I was managing a portfolio of rentals at the time for my boss, along with his farm. Well, he traveled the world. So yeah, I am young, but I also started working very young and had a lot of responsibilities. So I'm about a decade into running businesses, whether it be someone else's or my own. And fast forward through college, I ran a landscaping company while going to school full time. And when I was about 20 years old, I thought to myself, okay, I've definitely developed a skill set here that not a lot of younger people have. I've pretty much just worked through high school and college, which wasn't a whole lot of fun. But how do I take that experience and use it, build some sort of business or invest, or just do something with it? Because I thought, hey, if I'm managing a full-time job plus full-time school, when school's done, I'm going to have a lot of free time. So started reading, listening to podcasts, read about equities, different businesses, and like just about everyone else, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I read that, and real estate it was. That caught my attention. At the same time, I met a coworker of mine who was house hacking, and he introduced that idea to me and introduced me to Bigger Pockets. And so shortly thereafter, I bought a duplex while I was still in college. I was 21. And then I was in Ohio at the time, left Ohio, moved to Colorado because I didn't want to stay there. And after, that was 2018, I spent about a year working a normal job. While at the same time I was networking and meeting investors out here. But it was quickly clear I didn't want to stay in traditional employment. So I had to get some sort of active business going within real estate to feed the passive. And I also had the realization that this is a cash intensive venture, and being able to make a lot of money, whether it's through a high paying W-2 or some sort of business, works a lot better than trying to build a portfolio off of a marginal income. So that was a lot crammed into one little
No, that's awesome.
intro.
I appreciate the background, but I wanted to go way back there. You said you were 16, working for a boss who you were managing rentals for while he traveled the world, right?
Yeah.
Was that, were you, at the time where you're like, wait a minute, this guy is traveling the world and I'm collecting all this rent for him. I need something like that, right? I mean, how did that influence you at 16 working for somebody like that?
Well, honestly, it was not a positive experience. In hindsight, it taught me how not to manage rentals. But I mean, at that age, I wasn't really thinking about it. And I just remember ripping up nasty carpets. These were C- properties, areas, and he didn't have a very good dynamic with his tenants. So that actually made me not interested in real estate because I didn't understand what was going on the side of appreciation, amortization, the tax benefits. All I saw was the nasty carpet covered in some sort of animal feces that I was ripping up because I have a vivid memory of that. So yeah, at the time, no, that did not make me want to own rental properties.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. I didn't expect that, but I could see that happening as well.
Yeah.
But so, then you were running a landscaping business, while in school full time, right? I mean, you mentioned like just working through high school and college, I know through high school and many years after, like my mom said, it was like never a teenager, right? It just work. And I wonder for you, I can see now personally, like how that's helped shape me for many years in the future, right? Just that work ethic and drive at that time. But what about you? Like what gave you that desire to even be working at 16 when most are not thinking about working, right? But even past that, running your own business and doing all these things, like what gave you that drive from such a young age?
Yeah, that's a great question. We just had no money growing up. Rural Ohio, from about an hour southwest of Cleveland. And my parents had no money. Their parents had no money. They were slaves to their jobs. They couldn't go anywhere. They couldn't do anything. I mean, we would vacation once a year. They didn't get to see their own siblings and parents, even though they didn't live that far away. It just, as a kid, that was the norm. A lot of my friends' parents were the same way. Nobody had money. And so early on, I equated money more with freedom. I didn't really want things. I just wanted to have control over my time. And at 16, why did I start working? Well, I wanted a cell phone and a car, right? So I had to. Even in middle school, I was buying and selling stuff on eBay so I could go buy a paintball gun, right? So, as a kid, if I wanted anything beyond food or clothes, I had to go figure out how to pay for it. So that's what got me working at a young age. And then it was really around the college age that I discovered podcasts and books and just met more people that I realized the reality of my parents and the rest of my family did not have to be my own. And that there are people that were making substantial incomes, some passively, and enjoying doing it, had freedom over their time in life, because the outlook growing up where I did was fairly dismal. Most people, they never leave where they grow up. They don't really enjoy their job and they never go anywhere. And so, I think to answer the question succinctly, it's just if I wanted anything, I had to work for it. So that's why I started.
You and I have a similar background there, and that's why I had such a drive at a young age. It's like, well, if I want a vehicle at 16, guess what? Okay, I better go figure out a way to work and make it happen. You got to pay for insurance and fuel, all this. You're trying to figure that out at 16, man. You got to go get to hustling, right? You're going to figure out a way to hustle. And man, I think that just teaches you so much. And as a father now, it makes me think about, my children and how, to teach them that, right? And so, what about you? Have you thought about that? As you, years from now, like how do you plan to do that for your children? Let's, if you're a successful real estate entrepreneur, you have all this freedom. How do you still instill that in your children?
That is a great question that many people are struggling to answer, I think, every day. I have thought about that. I don't want to have kids quite yet, but I do plan to later in life. And, there is that stereotype of wealthy people's children tend to be brats. And so how do you balance that? I don't necessarily want them to grow up the way I did, but then I don't want to just give them everything. So I would think, just kind of thinking on the fly here, that some sort of arrangement where they don't just get anything, they have to do at least some sort of work, but maybe you help them. or I'm not sure. I did not expect to go down this road. But I think instilling in them that nothing is free is important, and that there has to be some sort of effort on their part. Like I personally, the idea of just sending kids to college, all expenses paid without them doing anything, to me, that sounds like a 4-year vacation. If I would have done that, I probably already have some kids and not like that. So I don't know. That's a hard question.
No, that's interesting. I didn't expect to have all the answers there, but I just wondered what you thought about it, how you were raised and moving forward. Because obviously you want to be successful in your real estate business and have that freedom and, have the ability, right, financially, with children, but anyway, just wondered what you thought about that. So, but let's dive in a little bit. You started reading, educating yourself. You didn't want to work that normal job, right? You wanted to get into real estate, but you mentioned you knew that real estate was like a high cash intensive business. I think you mentioned. What does that mean?
Well, so I bought that duplex, just did a house hack. That's in Ohio, still own it today. Property manager handles it. And then when I moved to Colorado, I bought another house hack, and then I felt stuck. I had 2 properties, great, which, that's not bad for your early 20s. But it just, when you're new, you tend to get sucked into all the no and low money down books and podcasts, which, again, there's not necessarily anything wrong with it because it does teach you to be resourceful. But if you want to build a significant portfolio, you or someone you're partnered with is kind of need cash, and it's a lot easier if you have cash. It's just easier to sleep at night because so many large expenses can pop up just like that. So I had that realization shortly after moving here. This was in 2018. So I had the 2 properties and I kind of felt stuck. And that is where I started to think, okay, what sort of active business can I build? I started, going to the real estate club out here, which I actually now host. And I met different people, wholesalers, property managers, brokers. And I met a guy who was looking for some help in his business, who had done a lot of development all over the west side of the country. Out in China, he built an apartment building, and he is the one who initially got me into land and development. It's turned into more of the buying and selling of land than anything, but I am still building a couple houses. But yeah, that has turned into my active business to create the income in this bucket to then put in the passive bucket of more buy and holds.
No, that's awesome. And quickly, how did you get the funds for the first couple duplexes or deals like you mentioned?
Well, the duplex, I was working full time, so I had a middle class income in college, so I had my own money for that. But we're talking owner occupant mortgages, so 3.5 was the first one, and then 5% on the second one.
No, but you hustled and came up with those funds. I mean, that's what I wanted the listener to hear as well. If they are in their early 20s or even in college, or hey, you can go make it happen. And so let's jump into the land and development. Why land and development quickly?
Well, this is in hindsight, obviously. I somewhat stumbled into it, but we talked about this a little bit before the show. It's this extremely inefficient asset, and specifically the markets I'm in. So what I mean by that, think of the world of equities, right? It's let me explain what the efficient market hypothesis is, because this is a really important concept. So in the world of equities, so stocks, the efficient market hypothesis is the idea that you have millions of rational investors looking at the prices at all times. So they ideally should approach intrinsic value. Now, we know there are mispricings from time to time, but it's very difficult. It's far more true in the world of equities, right? It's extremely difficult to buy a stock at a discount. On the other hand, let's look at the world of real estate. That is applicable to houses. Right now, everyone's looking at houses, apartments, cap rates are compressed. But what about land? Most people don't know about land. It's a little bit more of a niche. A lot of people don't know how to price, finance it. They don't understand zoning. Because of that, there's far fewer people looking at it. There's no ticker updating every minute like in the stock world. So buying land cheaply is very, very, very easy, relatively speaking. I am still getting deals between $100 and $150 in mailers consistently. So it's a super inefficient market. There are mispricings all over the place. And so that's turned into a business, buying and selling some for cash, some where I hold the financing on notes and then just build it on the prime parcels.
If you're interested in multifamily real estate but don't know how or where to begin, our guide on how to start investing in multifamily real estate breaks down everything you need to know about identifying good investments plus real-world examples. Download your copy in the show notes or visit lifebridgecapital.com/start now to start your journey in multifamily real estate. Interesting. No, I love land personally, but it's interesting how you saw a market, right, or an industry in real estate where there was inefficiencies, and you were like, okay, I can improve that, all right, or there's probably missed value there, right, because of the inefficiencies, and you saw that, and so that's just a neat way to look at business in general, right? I mean, it's no different than finding that seller who's been managing this property for 40 years and still writing everything down on a notepad, right? I mean, it's so inefficient, they're missing tons of value, and so. It's just so neat that you saw that and you took advantage of it, right? I mean, you said, well, you know what, I'm going to focus on that. And so I was thinking about that even in the just syndication business and how inefficiencies, right? How we're always trying to improve amongst every team member that I have. We're trying to always improve, and so we're as efficient as possible. But I want to think about the land piece. Like, how did you learn that business, and what gave you the confidence to move forward in buying, selling land?
More than anything, I learned that through the friend I told you I met at the real estate club. He's become, I guess you call him a mentor in many ways, but really just a lifelong friend. He showed me a lot of the land he bought and sold and how to do it and how to look into the zoning. And I just kind of worked with him for quite a while and learned that initially from him. Another friend of mine, actually, who lives here in Colorado Springs, after I'd done a few deals, he had a systemized turnkey business where he was buying and selling on notes. So I actually just paid him for that. And that's when I really turned it into a systemized business, and I'm working on it. So you bought
the business from him, or just bought like how he does everything?
The course, yeah.
Oh, he had a course. Okay.
He's a friend of mine. I met him years before he sold that. Brent Bowers, the Land Sharks. I'll give him a shout out. He's excellent if you want to learn about land. But anyways, I had known him for years since moving out here, and I watched him build his business. And so he started selling the course. I said, hey, man, because I already knew him. I trusted him. Right. And I said, hey, I'll be your first customer. So I bought it from him. And then that's when I was able to more systemize and turn it into a scalable business, as opposed to just kind of buying and selling parcels here and there.
So ultimately you hired a mentor, you paid for some training, right? Yep. I mean, and I couldn't, just commend you more for just jumping in and making it happen in that way. I've had, and I won't go in much into this, but my wife and I, we took our family yesterday. We were seeing this person, and they were offering a service. I won't even say what it is, but it was like $200 for like 10 minutes with this person or something. And they practically provided no benefit to us during that 10 minutes. And so it just made me think about this a lot, because on the way home, I'm like, wait a minute, I can't believe we just paid for that. But like in this case, I'm willing to pay a lot of money for 10 minutes with the right person. Right?
Yes,
it's worth it. The time component is irrelevant, but it's like, how much value are they bringing in that 10 minutes? And in this case, you're willing to pay for that, and it helps streamline your business, right? It taught you things, put systems in place. What were a few of those systems that maybe you think that we could use as syndicators, as operators too, in the multifamily space? Yeah,
well, emphasis on doing things once or twice, recording it, and then offloading it, and drilling that into my head, because again, it's easy to rationalize, oh, this doesn't take that much time, I'll just do it. Or, oh, there's no one that can do this as well as me. Those are both incorrect statements. And I'm learning this, and I'm still talking to myself saying this too, because there's more that I need to offload that I haven't, and I know it. But yeah, I think that was the most important thing from the business or the course I bought. It's just such an emphasis on, hey, none of this is for you to do. It's just a system for you to set up and put people in. And that is invaluable. If you really want to be a business owner, my acquisitions manager got a couple lots under contract last week. I didn't even know about them. That's awesome, right? When you can get to that point, the business gets a lot more fun when you're not doing everything, and when money is being made while you sleep, basically. That is satisfying.
you've turned into that boss, right? Traveling the world while somebody else is managing your business. Hopefully better than he was, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, hopefully I'm not a slumlord, but no, I take care of my rentals. Yeah.
That's awesome. How are you finding the land? Quickly, I want to move on to a few other questions, but how are you go through that process a little bit? How are you finding land like that and finding that value?
Sure. So take the concept I just explained of inefficient markets and apply it to the actual market as opposed to the asset type. So I talked about the asset type. There are secondary and tertiary markets here in Colorado that have been ignored, that were failed subdivisions from decades ago. Those are absolutely gold if you're in a macro context of growth. So Denver, Colorado Springs, where I live, they've been booming for years.
Don't tell people that. Don't tell people that.
That's true.
I don't know if you know that. We personally have about 1,000 units in Colorado Springs. So.
I didn't know that. Oh,
yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So I love it here. But anyways, so there are markets within 45 minutes to an hour where, as of a year ago, or actually in one of them still right now, you can buy turnkey lots, shovel-ready lots, all utilities, zoning, etc., for a few $1,000s. That's absurdly inefficient. So the concept of price versus quality comes up. I might not want to live there, but the price is so low, even though it's okay quality, that there's opportunity there. So anyways, those are the types of markets I'm in. I do all infill land. I don't do any of the rural raw stuff. That gets a little more complicated. And specifically failed subdivisions from years and years ago. I just was out in Nevada. There's a market out there outside of Vegas, same sort of thing. Gosh, I got myself a little bit lost. What was the original question?
No, that's all right. We were talking about how you find that land and how you find the value in that land.
Okay. So that's the first key, because if I try and do this in the Springs or Denver, it's going to be a much, much, much higher dollar per lead. It's a little bit more of an efficient market. So I send mailers with the offer price right on the mailer. I alternate between these land offer letters, which are in an envelope, and then I sometimes do postcards, but I don't want tire kickers, right? So straightforward offer. Hey, Whitney, I see you on such and such property. I'd pay you X amount. If interested, sign and return, or if interested, call me. Straightforward. That has been the primary way to get deals. However, my acquisitions manager has been cold calling, and she's gotten a few deals that way too. So slowly branching out into cold calling, but just a piece of advice here: if you're getting started, get really good at one sort of marketing. Don't try and do 10 different things at once. So slowly add in the cold calling after having had success with mailers for a long time.
Wow, that's incredible. That's just like any kind of marketing, right? Hey, let's get really good at Facebook, and then let's add on LinkedIn, or then let's add on. But man, you do it all at once. You almost do nothing, right?
Yeah.
So tell us about that team a little bit. You mentioned an acquisitions lead or manager. Who's on that team now? How has your team grown? That's probably been a learning experience as well. It definitely was for me. What does that look like?
So for the land, my acquisitions manager handles acquisitions completely at this point. And then I have a VA who does a lot of tasks for me, like posting land for sale, that sort of thing. And then that is just about everything, because the dispositions, the selling, takes almost no time. Now I'm rationalizing a little bit. I should have this, and I'm working on offloading this completely, but there's such a demand for these infill lots right now. And I've built up such a network, especially through hosting the real estate club out here. That's gotten me a huge buyers list that I'll take the time to send out lots to them. And I'm still doing that myself. But yeah, the acquisitions manager handles everything on acquisitions. VA handles a lot of the admin work. And then as far as the building of the houses, once the parcel is bought, and then I take the plan from my designer, get the financing set up, the GC builds that out all the way. One of my realtors just told me that the foundation is being poured on a house we're building. I didn't even know that. And that's a good thing, is my point. So if you find the right GC, building simple infill houses can be very passive too. So really it's just the acquisitions manager, a VA, and then on the development side, a solid GC. I need to get probably one more employee to handle transaction coordination and more admin stuff, because I'm surprised as to how much time I'm still spending just communicating with the title companies and signing it, all that. So that's probably the piece I'm missing. But point being, you don't need a big team.
Awesome. What's been the most challenging part or biggest challenge for you, just getting from, what that 16-year-old who was managing rentals for that boss, to your own successful land business now?
Getting over the changing my thinking, really, which when I was new and I heard people say that really always frustrated me because it didn't seem practical. So if you're new and you're frustrated by that, just trust me, you have to be in the right mindset. I'm just getting to there's such a extreme, intense scarcity mindset I was raised on. Very, post World War II depression era sort of mindset is what I was raised on, where the sky's always falling, the government's always crashing, everything's always going wrong, right? So getting out of that thinking has been so important because it holds you back. It makes you be ultra conservative in your business. And for me, and I'm still working on it, I almost, for a long time, I think that if something goes right, something else has to go wrong. Now I've gotten through that, but for a long time, that's how I thought, right? And so really growing and progressing has largely, or can largely be attributed to changing of the mindset, getting a little more positive in my thinking and not so scarcity minded.
Man, that right there could have been a whole podcast, just that one thing, right? I mean, mindset. The listeners have heard me talk about it probably hundreds of times now over the last few years. But I mean, it's just so crucial. Yeah. And I have a similar background as far as that as well, from what you just described. It's incredible. When I started changing my mindset, right? The other things started to change. So it's just neat to hear that from you as well. And, what about, how do you prepare for some kind of downturn or a potential downturn in your type of business?
Great question. Yeah. One of the biggest things I've done is keep my personal expenses low. It's really tempting, and I have to focus on this. It's really tempting as your income scales to want to spend more money, but I'm going to stay fairly frugal here for a couple more years. I mean, sure, we all reach a point, I think, if you stick with this, where you can be a little more liberal with your expenses. But I've talked to enough older guys and girls who had businesses for a long time to learn from their mistakes or from people that they knew who made mistakes. So not letting my ego get out of control and start spending money and that sort of thing is number one. Number two, I keep a good amount of cash to the side. Number three, I still wouldn't buy any properties that don't cash flow. All my properties cash flow. This one I'm buying now cash flows, and I will stick to that, I think, no matter what. And then number four, just talking to people, 60, 70, 80-year-old business owners and learning from them is really, really helpful in my opinion, because it just, like everything I just described, it helps me not make those mistakes that they or their peers made, and it helps shorten the learning curve and everything. And also, you get to hear about what happened to them in those recessions. So I know that you can still buy and sell land, at least historically, during a recession. I have a couple friends who've done that for decades, and they did it in 07 and 08 and 09, and that's a sustainable business model. It's a little harder, but it tends to be easier to get deals, and then just a little bit harder to get them sold, and probably more financing has to be provided. But point being, I know my business model works all the time. There would just be shifts to it if we hit another recession. And again, I could make $0 from my land business and my rentals would pay my bills anyway. So there's just several layers of safety there between the cash I have in the bank, keeping my expenses low, the rentals, and then also the land business. Plus, here's the biggest thing, and this goes back to your question you just asked me about, or the conversation about changing the mindset, is I used to worry about this all the time. When's the market going to crash? When is the sky going to fall? And I've realized now it's not a matter of having enough rentals or having enough money. It's about developing the skill set so that when that hits, you're ready and you can pivot as needed. It's not that things aren't going to go wrong. It's that I'm getting to the point where I have the confidence and skill set to handle it.
Great answer. I hope listeners will go back 30 seconds there and listen to that again. That is a great answer. I love that, Dan. It's incredible. You mentioned you're buying properties at cash flow, and that's definitely one of the ways that we hedge against some kind of downturn as well. Mm-hmm. But I'm sure listeners saying, well, wait a minute, you're buying land. How does land cash flow, or does it?
Oh, I'm talking about the rental portfolio, but land does cash flow if you do it right. So last week I closed on 2 parcels. I bought them. These are going to be approximate numbers, but one I was all in at 15. One I was all in, I think, at 16 because I had to pay my acquisitions back. So yeah, sold both of them where the down payment equaled the money I had into it, and 8% interest amortized over 60 months. He's going to pay me on those for 5 years. Significant interest rate. I think it's 250 something and about 290 a month. So there's, a little over $500, and it's really just an annuity, right? It doesn't appreciate like my houses, but it's still a solid chunk of cash flow just from those 2 deals. So land can also cash flow.
Nice. What's a couple of daily habits that you are disciplined about that have helped you achieve success?
Exercising every day, reading every day, and at least during the week, I always get up early, 5 to 6. I don't sleep in. I definitely feel better. I'm more productive when I get up early.
Number one thing that's contributed to your success?
Consistency over the long term.
Man, I just hope the listeners are hearing that. I mean, I've heard that from so many successful guests like yourself. It's like those consistent actions. In the moment, you feel like are doing nothing, right? But man, 6 months later, you just won't believe how far you've gone. So how do you like to give back?
Hosting the real estate club, that initially helped me. I spend a lot of time just talking to people and helping them through their first house hack or first buy, whatever it is they're trying to do. And I really enjoy that too. So, yeah.
Dan, it's been a pleasure to meet you and have you on the show. I hope
Likewise.
that the listeners are just so encouraged by your story. I know I am. And I just congratulate you on your success. At 25, the sky is the limit, right? And you just have so much more runway, right? Especially, accomplishing what you have, the things you've learned, the mindset shift alone, much less the real estate business and going out and taking action like you have. But just congratulations to you on that success. Tell the listeners how they can get in touch with you and learn more about you.
Yeah, so I started a YouTube channel and I'm having a lot of fun with that. It's not flashy. I'm not putting clickbait headlines. Those drive me nuts. But if you want simple videos, for example, I just put a video on the numbers of the seller financing house, a video on the land, one of the houses I'm building. If you want simple, straightforward, pragmatic information, Dan Haberkost on YouTube or Instagram, Facebook, you can find me. There you'll see more pictures of the mountains, but you'll also see some business stuff too.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Syndication Show, brought to you by LifeBridge Capital. LifeBridge Capital works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate, while also donating 50% of its profits to assist parents who are committing to adoption. LifeBridge Capital, making a difference, one investor and one child at a time. Connect online at www.lifebridgecapital.com for free material and videos to further your success.